This ain't no fucking game. You know, you two-thirds that are screwing around, you're soon going to find out what's really going to happen, but it'll be too late. You'll be looking for us out there. We won't be out there teaching anymore. Not when all hell breaks loose. Well, we've done some videos on this already, and this brother here, which the channel's name says a lot for itself, GMS Only the Elect. It's only the elect that's going to hear us. Well, you know, we're speaking to all, but only the elect is really listening. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah Kadash, double honors, ales and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity, and shout out to Akims out there in the four corners of the earth to proclaim this truth. Rakah the Yahweh, Rakah the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah Kadash, Rakatam. Jacob's troubles are right around the corner, because this NDAA is a lot more serious than what people are paying attention to. This really, you know what Jade Helm was? Jade Helm means the army after next. Now you remember that they were doing practice drills, and that the NDAA was actually created after the Patriot Act. Is created during the Obama administration, you know, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, which in it now is going to combine both militaries, the U.S. military with the Israeli military. As you know, the U.S. military will be fighting on the grounds, you know, inside Iran, while the Israeli military will be sent to the streets of Babylon to round you two-thirds up, as well as as everyone else. FEMA camps for everyone. Who do you think's going to enforce it? Yeah, we've been telling you for some time that Babylon's going to look a lot like Gaza, meaning that they're going to round you up, and they're going to destroy communities right and left, and they're going to bulldoze houses, everything. Everything that you're seeing going on in the Israeli state is about to happen here.
Second Esdras, chapter 16 and verse 68. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you, and feed you being idle with things offered unto idols. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach, and trodden under foot. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods, and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. Shalom, call the Lord Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, who teach in well, peace, and infinite salutation to the elect that are scattered abroad with this work in truth and sincerity. I'm the brother of Abal Gabar from GMS Tampa, coming at you with a lesson. Lord willing, edifying to the elect. Going into a little bit of Jacob's trouble, and as you know, America and Israel are getting ready to merge militaries, all right? And I pulled this up, okay? U.S. and Israel merge military, right? In the AI overview, it says the U.S. and Israel are not merging their armed forces, which sooner or later that's going to happen anyways. But it says, but a newly passed House defense bill deepens bilateral technology cooperation and joint research. You know, which ultimately is, you know, this place is through. America is no longer going to be a sovereign nation, and this is not the land of the free. And the whole world is getting ready to witness that. Especially people in America are about to witness that your freedom was nothing but an illusion. Okay, and they're about to take your illusion, that illusion of freedom, they're going to take it away. Okay, in the very near future, with all these things that are taking place in the Middle East, the war escalating. Now they're talking about nuclear bunker busters. You know, they're talking about boots on the ground in Israel. You got Iran that's setting up snipers along the coast, okay, of the Strait of Hormuz. You got China and Russia that's giving key intel to Iran. Now you have, what was it? Let me see if I can find it real quick. I think it was Ukraine has struck Iran like with a drone in I think the Caspian Sea. I think that's what it was. Let me pull it up real quick. Just bear with me. I saw that today. So things is heating up. Point is, all right. Oh man, okay, time. It's all good. Let me go ahead and play this video real quick.
Okay, listen up. I think they're going to hit us any minute. Get ready, because when the conscriptions to go and fight for Israel starts, it will be people of color, Native Americans, Asians, black people, Latinos. So they officially merged the U.S. military with the Israeli military. And for those of you
Yeah, absolutely. You know, your average American soldier, they're not going to go in and be the ones to establish this new world order that we've been talking about for years, and the elder apostles for decades, telling you about the FEMA camps, re-education centers, telling you about the microchip, telling you about the orchestrated famine that's getting ready to hit, the ultimate squeeze, okay, the depopulation agenda, everything's getting ready to happen. And see, the elites know that the American soldiers, they're not going to be the one. They're not going to go and kick in doors of their own family members and friends. So now we see why Israel and America are merging militaries, because you're going to have IDF soldiers and UN troops, United Nations troops, doing the dirty work. Because you know the IDF, they don't give a damn about you Americans, you know? You goy, they call you cattle, you know? And they even said that they don't, look, and we was talking about it yesterday at camp. This whole thing with Iran, it started between Israel and Iran to begin with, but now Israel's just sitting on the bench watching America get their ass whooped and wanting to merge militaries. And Benjamin Netanyahu, as the elder Malcolm calls him, you know, he said, you know, we're not going to put our soldiers' boots on the ground. We're going to let you Americans do that. So while you Americans are getting drafted off into this war to fight for the small hats by the hundreds of thousands, even could reach millions, you getting sent off to the Middle East. Guess what? The IDF soldiers are going to be here in America, kicking in doors, establishing the NWO.
Yep.
It really goes back to the small hats anyways.
Yep.
Okay? So we see how this thing is going to play out. This thing is about to get ugly quick. So I'm going to play this back a little bit. 5-minute video. I'm going to let it play out.
Fully aware that the U.S. service members won't take to the streets and start slaughtering their own people. But when you merge two militaries together, it's quite easy to just fly the IDF over here to the U.S. streets and do just about anything and kill just about anyone that the U.S. government wants unalived.
Yep. And just for people that don't know, which most of you do, the IDF is the Israeli Defense Force. So Israeli, the small hats military, are going to be here in America.
Train ICE and ISIS.
Martial law is getting ready to happen. You're going to have IDF soldiers, which a lot of the ICE agents are being trained by IDF. And they're already killing people in the streets, especially, and you Israelites, man, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you are in trouble. Because they want to erase you. In this New World Order, they want to get rid of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. They hate you with a burning passion. The small hats, they want to destroy you. They want to kill you. All right? It really goes back to that birthright, going back to Genesis, you know? Remember, he said, and actually, let me grab it real quick. All right? When the days of mourning were finished, I will seek the slay my brother Jacob. All right? That's the spirit that these devils are in, man. Esau, he's getting ready to come down with great wrath. Right? Like never seen before. The time of Jacob's trouble is going to be worse than slavery, man. And it's not hard to comprehend when you realize the technology has evolved in such a mass scale that they have drones, they have robot dogs, they have Terminators. Brother was going into it yesterday. They can come on your block with a damn Iron Man suit. So
yeah, just take a good look at Gaza.
That that the so-called
That's what Babylon's going to look like.
Back during the time of slavery, it never went away. For you people that want to love the so-called white man and he's good. And,
you think you have a home here? They're going to bulldoze your shit.
And realize that this man is the devil about to speak up, man. And the whole world is about to see this devil's horns, man. And that's why the scriptures say that the nations were angry, were mad. The nations are upset. The nations are angry. But this thing's about to happen on a mass scale. Okay? This is Genesis 27:41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him, right? Because Jacob got the prominent, ultimate blessing of the kingdom of heaven. Which Esau, he sold his birthright. You know, you damn devils, man. But now you're mad. You don't reap havoc on the whole earth. You know, you had control over the whole earth. You know. And now we're reaching the end. And now you're upset because Jacob is the one that's really going to get the kingdom, man. And it's starting to, settle in. So what are these devils going to do? They're going to come down with great wrath. All right? They're not going to go down without a fight. They know that we are the Israelites, man. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you need to wake the hell up. You're the ones that don't know who you are, where you come from, your history, why you went into slavery. You don't know that. You don't know the name of the Lord. But see, these elites on the left hand, these Edomites, these Rothschilds, Rockefellers, DuPonts, Gettys, these super rich Edomites that you don't see on the TV, you don't see on the news. They know who you are.
Yep, and they're coming after you. Jacob's trouble's right around the corner. Everything leading to the mandate of the MOTB. Who do you think's going to enforce it? Yeah, exactly. Because King Bibi said this, about COVID 2020. Yeah, he said that Israeli state was very easy to do it. It was very easy to mandate the vaccines and to get everybody to cooperate because it was such a small state. Yet, the whole world, on a massive scale also enforced lockdowns, etc., right? Well, how much more when the MOTB is mandated, right? See, like everything else, though, the least of the flock shall draw them out, shall make their habitations desolate with them. Yeah, those U.S. soldiers that you think are going to defend you, you know, all those other renegade groups, they're not going to be able to do much against the IDF. Yeah, sorry to say, but most of them are going to be exhausted trying to fight those Israeli terrorists, you know. And like everything else, though, ICE is trained by IDF. IDF doesn't give a fuck about you, you know, whether you're an Edomite, a two-thirds, especially he hates you. But look at what he does to his own, you know. Amalek is the worst of all of them, and hey, it's ramping up, you know. Jacob's troubles around the corner leading to the MOTB. And like everything else, though, the consequences being caught up in nuclear destruction if you survive the IDF.
This entire war is about Israel and the interest of its agents in the United States, its lobby, its supporters, the Zionist billionaires, whatever you want to call them. That's what this is about. This is not about the United States of America.
No.
Contrary to popular belief, Iran is not and never has been an existential threat to us. And if you go back and pick through all the series of supposedly horrific things the Iranians have done to us, they all shrink to insignificance next to the war that we encouraged Iraq to fight against Iran. It cost Iranians somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000 dead and perhaps 1 million casualties. Nobody brings it up. We set it up. We equipped Saddam Hussein. We set him into action. This is long before we went after Saddam. And this is a big problem. This is not about our interests. We have no interest in attacking Iran. Remember, it was the attack on Iran by the United States and Israel that has caused the Gulf to be closed. It was open until the attack.
In a move that has sent shockwaves through the region, Ukrainian forces have struck an Iranian commercial vessel.
And then you have
in the Caspian
Ukraine
Sea.
tied into this
resulted in the death of
now.
at least one sailor and left another wounded. This isn't just another skirmish. It is a dangerous expansion of the Ukraine-Russia conflict into a new theater.
He did it
desperate gambit by
for
Kyiv
King
to sever the
Bibi.
military supply lines between Tehran and Moscow.
The least of the
Ukrainian
flock.
Security Service has claimed the vessel was transporting military cargo between Iran and Russia while evading international sanctions, a justification that rings hollow as Iran's foreign ministry condemns the strike as a hostile and criminal act of aggression. This attack, which the Iranian government says violates the UN Charter, represents a fundamental escalation, and Tehran has made it abundantly clear that it reserves the full right to retaliate against what it perceives as a direct act of war.
So that's
the Iranian
where we
foreign
are.
ministry has already summoned Ukraine's charge d'affaires in Tehran to convey
has now
its fury,
entered the war.
describing the assault as a blatant attempt to expand the flames of war beyond Ukraine's borders. This is not merely an isolated incident. It is a symptom of a much larger crisis, a direct consequence of the West's reckless proxy war against Russia that is now spiraling out of control and threatening to ignite the entire Caspian Basin. The world is watching as the lines of conflict blur, and the Biden-Trump administration's collective failure to contain this fire is now painfully obvious for all to see. If you find this analysis valuable and want to see more independent...
So there you go. It's a fire raging out of control. Now we'll play some more, though.
Please subscribe to this channel to support real news and stay informed on these critical global developments. The audacity of this Ukrainian strike is staggering, but what it reveals about the broader strategic picture is even more damning for the United States. This is precisely the kind of event that retired Colonel Douglas Macgregor has been warning about for years. Macgregor recently spoke at a news event where he rightly pointed out that the idea of a ground war against Iran is a logistical and operational nightmare, a quagmire that would make the disasters of Iraq and Afghanistan look like minor skirmishes. He argued, and I concur with a significant portion of his assessment, that the sheer lethal firepower Iran possesses, along with the fierce resistance it could muster from its population, particularly in the coastal regions, makes any ground invasion a suicidal proposition. However, while I deeply respect Macgregor's military acumen, I must part ways with his definitive assertion that the United States cannot carry out such operations.
They could,
the United States
but
is
it's
the
going
most
to be
powerful and
a
technologically
cost.
advanced military in the history of the world. It has the logistical capacity and the professional fighting force to mobilize for such an invasion faster and more efficiently than Iran could ever hope to muster. The real reason the Americans will not, and I emphasize will not, launch a ground invasion is not about
the
logistics.
casualties.
It is about the terrifying existential consequences that would follow. The only thing keeping American boots off Iranian soil is the stark reality that such a move would unleash a level of violence that would make the current conflict look like a border dispute. Iran would not hesitate to unleash catastrophic devastation on America's Gulf allies, the very petro-monarchies that prop up the global oil economy. The Strait of Hormuz would be shut down in an instant, choking off the flow of oil from the entire region and sending the global economy into a tailspin of depression-level proportions. This is not a matter of
But it is
capability.
going to happen.
It is a matter of unacceptable risk, a calculus that the Pentagon's war planners, for all their bluster, fundamentally understand. While Macgregor focuses on the logistical hurdles, the truth is that the American military machine is currently being bled white in the skies over West Asia. The United States is running dangerously, catastrophically low on its most critical defensive assets, interceptor missiles. General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has reportedly warned President Trump in no uncertain terms that the stockpiles of Patriot interceptors and other air defense munitions in the Middle East are dwindling to perilous levels. In a stunning admission of weakness, Trump has been forced to order a temporary suspension of major operations against Iran, halting the relentless bombing campaign.
Plus, King Baby's coming
What would
over.
happen if Trump today was tempted to say, I'm going to do my own Desert Storm, and I'm going to move a bunch of troops over there? Can we do that?
No, first of all, we live in a new world today, and you could never build a lodgment unless you had enormous quantities of air and missile defense that you could surround the so-called lodgment area where you would collect and organize and assemble forces. And at the time, one of the things that we discussed privately was if we ever have to come back again in the future, given the direction of technology, we'd probably have to land in a place like Yanbu on the Red Sea and then cross the desert, because if we tried to get into the Persian Gulf, we would be sunk or attacked or killed pretty rapidly. So a lot of people realized, I think more people realized the danger that would be presented in the future than we appreciate right now. Admiral Zborowski certainly understood that, as did the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, whose name escapes me at the moment. But there were people that were thinking this through. But ultimately, Dan, I think the real lesson is this. Even though there were smart people at the helm, nothing really changed inside the force.
And you talk about if we land in Yanbu, which is about right there on the map there, that would be 1,000 kilometers that we would have to travel just to get to the battle space area right there, as opposed to when you and I went in, we went to Al Jabail, which was right here. That would be literally impossible right now, with all of the Iranian firepower that they have all up and down this coast, for us to try and disembark with ro-ro ships and container ships to get our tanks and whatever else off the board here, just to drive up to Kuwait. That would be nearly impossible right now. In fact, it might be absolutely impossible. What do you think?
Completely, without question. No doubt about it. And, the tanks are still equipped with these turbine engines. And those things, as you know, drank fuel. And even though you have this auxiliary power unit that's supposed to reduce the amount of fuel that you consume, if you're moving, it doesn't make any difference how fast you move. You consume the gas at roughly, I think it was 8 hours, 7.5 to 8 hours, and you're on empty. I mean, that's 7 or 8 hours of operation. You can't fight a war that way. That's why the notion of committing these forces in a place like Ukraine is absurd. Ukraine is enormous. You go a couple of 100 miles, and everybody's standing around waiting for tons of fuel to arrive. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, and in fact, it doesn't, whether it makes sense or not, we just don't have that capability anymore. So if that happens, the whole system is so much more vulnerable than it was in 1991. It's remarkable how less capable we are today. And I don't think President Trump keeps saying it. Secretary Hicks said 2 days ago, repeated, we're the most powerful military on the planet, and yet we couldn't even do a Desert Storm 2 because of our limited capability. That's the reality of it.
Well, you got an echo. You got an echo. Okay.
I don't hear an echo. I don't. If you do, I'm not sure about that.
I think this. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. I have no problem hearing you.
I think we have to understand that it's civilians in general, particularly people who are members of Congress, they're very impressed with glitz and glamour, shock and awe. You show them videotapes of explosions. They equate an explosion on the ground with an effect that is a war-winning effect. There's no understanding of how complex warfare is, and the need for multiple capabilities being employed and orchestrated as an integrated force. There's just no understanding of that at all. So everybody is in the hunt for a silver bullet. Everybody wants to buy the silver bullet that will win the war. And we're finding out that there are no silver bullets unless you want to go the nuclear route. And we should talk about that because I think that's being discussed too.
And, let's take a look there, Doug, because you say it's complex. Well, apparently for most of Washington, it's actually not complex at all. It's kind of easy. It's just about a bunch of cash. And here we have a $1.5 trillion defense budget was passed by the House, and that was a little bit deceptive. We're going to talk about what the internal parts of that are here shortly. But just looking at the top line number here, $1.15 trillion. But that's also in addition to $350 billion, which was just for semantic, so it didn't look as $1.5 trillion, going from 1 to 1.5 trillion, which is just astronomical. But Congress is really happy with that. And also, turns out that money equals capability. And General Jack Keane says, you know what? Let's just go and use that force and finish the job.
We are on a definite path to return to major combat operations that would involve Israel and the United States. I think that is the path we're on. Is there some negotiations that the Iranians want to do here? Of course, they want to negotiate. Why now? They want to negotiate because they want to stop the United States from imposing their will, firing on them,
Trump
and taking away their military capabilities. They want to stop that, as they did successfully back on April the 7th and April the 8th. They want to replay that. I don't believe that's going to happen. Pakistanis and Qataris are supporting him on that, but I don't think that's where the president is and his team around him. I believe where they are frustrated, they want to get the Straits of Hormuz eventually open and also return to major combat operations and finish what they started out to do in terms of assigned military objectives.
So, like everything else, though, they can never get their objectives because Iran will not capitulate, no matter what you do to them. They didn't capitulate to 8 years of war from Saddam Hussein. Babylon the Great ain't got fucking 8 years, okay? It's on its death toll, right? So, like everything else, so it's near its end anyways. But what's Trump doing in the meantime, while he's kind of paused strikes? Trump made strategic mistake with tariffs. And of course, it's, you know, the Israelis that are pressuring him to do it because he is totally on King Bibi's dick. Got to remember, with this merger, pretty much, though, King Bibi is the king of Babylon. And Trump's just the president. You see, like everything else, so there's a hierarchy. And King Bibi still might be on his way out because there are elections coming up in the Israeli state, if you didn't know. And this other guy, Bennett, yeah, he's even more of a lunatic than fucking Bibi is when you find out more about him. U.S. President Trump's tariffs against Brazil are a strategic mistake that will harm the American economy. Well, he doesn't give a shit about that. Remember, he was put in to bankrupt America, and he's doing it. President Silva has written an op-ed for the Washington Post. Last week, the U.S. imposed an additional 12.5% tariff against Brazil products on top of the previous 25%, potentially raising duties on some goods to 37.5%. According to Global Trade Alert, Brazil and Turkey now share second place in terms on the scale of the tariffs D.C. applied to them behind China. So, like everything else, so Turkey, which is supposed to be an ally, he's fucking off every ally. He noted that Brazilian exports to the U.S. have fallen to their lowest level since 1997, with bilateral trade down 12.8% from the same period last year. He warned that the tariffs would disrupt supply chains and prompt Brazilian companies to replace their U.S. suppliers with partners elsewhere. Guess what? Brazil is part of BRICS, right? Duh. Brazil, Russia. Was A for Brazil, Russia. Oh, India, China, and South Africa. Those are the original ones. But then you got Iran and Saudi Arabia in there now. Yeah, Iran and Saudi Arabia are BRICS members. So is United Arab Emirates. So, like everything else, so the U.S. is losing its allies right and left. And the only ally they really have, well, they're one. The Zionist. Everybody fucking hates the Zionists. Okay? This is the Most High doing it. Getting Zionist, America, Great Satan, and Little Satan together so they can be destroyed as one. And that's what the Most High is about to do. Not to mention he's going to also destroy Russia. Don't forget, he's against Russia as well. As you know what the scriptures are talking about. You know, when it says, I am against you, O God, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. Meaning that, yeah, he's against Russia too, which is the remnant. U.S. says it's time to dismantle the ICC after Venezuela announces withdrawal. So like everything else, so you got the puppet state of Venezuela, because of course they kicked out Nicolas Maduro. They've pretty much, kidnapped and extorted him, removed him. So Venezuela is under the control of the Zionists that control Babylon. It's just now affirmative, And pretty much this is a move that the Israeli state had wanted. Because like everything else, so the ICC is after King Bibi. So now that they've withdrawn from the ICC, it ain't going to hold any water. Statement comes after Rubio pledged campaign against the court and member states voted to remove Chief Prosecutor Carmen Khan, which is part of the ones presenting a case with the International Criminal Court. The U.S. welcomed decision by new Venezuelan government to withdraw the country from the International Criminal Court. It pointed out an investigation by the court by former President Nicolas Maduro, who was abducted from the country during a U.S. military invasion in January 2026, saying it had produced no result. The ICC instead wasted its resources on investigating charging persons from countries that have competent, independent judicial systems in which they never committed to the jurisdiction of the court, the statement read. Something like everything else, though. Yep, they've removed anybody that can bring down King Bibi. But they're about to have elections over there in the Israeli state, by the way. Saudi's Aramco targeted, that's another thing that happened over the weekend, is the Houthis retaliated against Aramco, which is the hugest oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. It's the thing that keeps their wealth going, including sprawling Abraq facility as Tehran allowed militants test U.S.-Iran pause. Well, like everything else, though, Iran does not control the The Houthis, they support the Houthis, but they don't control them. See, that's another illusion there. Houthis existed long before this whole struggle with Iran. Which, like everything else, though, we know that what's happening, though, is that everybody's being drawn into the conflict on one side or the other. Saturday saw a final break in what was 13 consecutive days of tit-for-tat attacks between the U.S. and Iran, with U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Waltz having confirmed to Fox News Sunday that President Trump is trying to give peace a chance. Give peace a chance when war is in his heart, right? All we say, it's just as ridiculous. War has always been in his heart. He said, give it a little boom. Waltz said, we've had both Oman and Iran and a number of our negotiators engaged at every level from the most senior levels, so they're going to talk peace while war is in their heart. But these oil fields are set on fire, as you can see there. Which Aramco is one of the biggest facilities in Saudi Arabia. CENTCOM chief believes U.S. strikes against Hormuz are no longer effective. Well, that's a good assessment. Because guess what, though? Iran's weapons are superior to the U.S. They are superior. The weak are strong. The hammer of the whole earth is being cut asunder. Meaning that they don't have shit anymore. Top Commander West Asia Admiral Brad Cooper advised U.S. President Trump that striking Iranian targets around the strait was no longer effective, reported on Sunday, citing two people familiar with the matter. Trump paused the strikes on Friday, abruptly ending a 13-day bombing campaign, and reported that regional mediators were rushing to broker the new ceasefire, which is a joke. The joke is that America thinks that they're begging for a ceasefire. It's America that's begging for that, but they want to give everybody the illusion that Iran is weak and they want to make a deal. U.S. not involved with talks between Oman and over the strait, meaning that Iran and Oman are their own entities and they have nothing to do with the U.S. These talks have no connection with the United States. They are a bilateral matter between Iran and Oman, and they are continuing, said Bakri. So, like everything else, Iran still controls the strait, and they have a partnership with Oman. Iran's foreign ministry on Monday said the United States was not involved in recent talks with Oman over the administration of the strategic strait. These talks have no connection with the U.S. They are a bilateral matter between Iran and Oman, and they are continuing. Traffic through Hormuz, a vital global shipping route, has been under Iranian control since the outbreak of the war with the Israeli state and the U.S. You may as well just say the whole Zionist state, because NDAA says they're one anyways. Iran consists retaining control over the management of the strait, including the collection of service fees, while keeping Oman involved as a coastal state, meaning that, hey man, you're going to get some money on this these tolls too. The collapse of an Iran-U.S. Memorandum of Understanding signed in June resulted in 13 days of exchanges of fire between the two sides, though fighting has been on hold since late Friday. But there are other moves being made. Iran says it suspended retaliatory attacks after the U.S. strikes ceased. Iran said on Sunday that it had suspended its retaliatory attacks after the U.S. halted military strikes against the country. Yeah, there's no need for them to continue. The Americans halted their attacks during the past 2 weeks. Khamenei said, since our strategy is based primarily on reciprocity, reciprocal, we have also halted our retaliatory operations. So pretty much, so that's why they call it True Promise. That's why all the operations were called True Promise. They haven't officially called it True Promise 5 yet, because, this has just been tit-for-tat attacks, not a full-blown war, even though it seems like it. In other words, they're just getting everything ready for the full-blown war, which there's another brother who put up a video recently. So, yes, I stand corrected. In the essence of, you got all the players of World War III there, but it hasn't officially become World War III until the New World Order is established. But that's, as you can see with the NDAA Act, how that's going to form real quick. And then you can say World War III. Once the ground invasion happens, which is what Apostle Tahar has been teaching for years. When you see all the troops of Saudi Arabia against Iran, that's when you see World War III, when they attack Iran, meaning the ground invasion. Even though they're attacking Iran now, this is nothing as compared to the ground war, which is going to kill a lot and going to bring in the New World Order, which all will happen simultaneously. We don't have many days left. Iran warns it will expand attacks across the region if the U.S. restarts airstrikes. I believe that if the Americans once again fall for the Zionist deception or move in line with them, but the Zionists and America are one now. Great Satan is all that it is now. Little Satan is part of the Great Satan. So the two have become one. And insist on continuing their war, particularly through airstrikes geographically. This will expand further, says Iranian spokesman. So like everything else, though, they want an expansion. They're going to get it. Because this is what King Bibi says, who rules Donald Trump. As you can see, he's about to kiss him on the lips. Because they're butt buddies. And remember, Trump is Amalek, by the way. People can't see that. I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. Because like everything else, though, they're the puppets in place. It's just King Bibi has more rule than he does. King Bibi says war will end when Iranian government toppled or sufficiently weakened. Well, that's never going to happen. Israeli Prime Minister says he expects the war against Iran to continue until there is a regime change in Iran or it is weakened to the point that Tehran must bend to the U.S. and Israeli demands. On Sunday, King Bibi was asked when the conflict in West Asia will end. I think when the regime is either toppled or is sufficiently weakened, that it knows it has to end its nuclear program and has to change its course. So like everything else, though, pretty much so, that's what he's saying. And do what I say, don't kiss me on the lips. Because that's what's going to happen this week. Ahead of Israel's elections, Bennett rejects two-state solution as Eisenkot surges in polls. So like everything else, though, Bennett, which you already know him from before, he was the prime minister prior to King Bibi getting back in there, who wants to go after Turkey. And there's a reason for going after Turkey. Because everybody knows that Turkey is the wall that's going to come down and going to destroy the Zionist state. All of it. They will come down. Russia will come down through Turkey, through all those other areas, so they know that part of that wall will come down, so they know that they want to attack Turkey ahead of that. They know all this. Ahead of Israeli elections, Bennett rejects two-state solution as Eisenkot surges in polls. Israeli opposition leader and former Prime Minister Bennett said that he will not allow a Palestinian state to be established even at the cost of normalization with Saudi Arabia. Israeli state is gearing up for its general election on the 27th of October, widely seen as one of the most consequential in the country's history, which could end King Bibi's tenure and that of his right-wing Liquid Party. So like everything else, it could see the end of King Bibi. But that doesn't stop what's already happened. The merger has already happened. And like everything else, King Bibi is just trying to hold on to it because by the International Criminal Court, he will be found guilty. But as long as Bennett's continuing the war, they're not going to really prosecute it. Well, I think they could if he's no longer in power. So a lot of things are going to happen this year. And we can call him King Bennett when he becomes the leader, because remember, the king of Babylon, Donald J. Trump, is just subdued. Pretty much he has already given control to the Israeli state officially by the NDAA, which Obama started that, but Trump is the one to trump all. Israeli state, Arab states step up security coordination against Iran. So like everything else, the Israeli state is deepening security coordination with the Arab states as it prepares for their renewed war against Iran. Israeli state stepped up security coordination with several Arab countries as it prepares for the possibility of renewed war against Iran. Israeli media reported on Monday as the United States reinforces its presence in the region, despite a current lull in fighting between DC and Tehran. Well, like everything else, though, they're just waiting on King Baby to come over here. The report comes after Iran said it suspended retaliatory attacks against U.S. allies in the region, while U.S. officials indicated President Trump was leaving room for negotiations even as American terrorists remain on heightened alert. Israeli Prime Minister is expected to push Trump towards a more confrontational approach to Iran during talks in D.C. tomorrow, because that's what Tuesday is. Oh, a lot of shit's about to happen. And this is going to be very interesting. Expect everything this week. Zelensky attacked Caspian Sea cargo ship at Israelis' behest. Iran already knows about this. Ukraine leader Zelensky stated earlier that the vessel struck on Saturday was transporting military cargo. Iran, which denied involvement in the fighting between Russia and Ukraine, said the attack killed one sailor. Agashi reiterated his country's position during separate calls with the EU's top diplomat. Zelensky has attacked Iranian commercial vessel, killing a sailor, a blatant UN Charter violation done at Israeli behest to drag Europe into the war. So the least of the flock drawing them in, because you got to remember, Ukraine is a part of Amalek. So we're going to play this next video here, which Professor Morandi gets into this a little bit. So here we are with Professor Morandi, who's going to get into this.
Well, let's bring in Professor Syed Mohammed Morandi, geopolitical analyst and academic at the University of Tehran. We appreciate your time, sir. So now Ukraine has seemingly entered the war in that type of fashion with a lethal attack on a commercial Iranian vessel. What is your assessment of what occurred?
Obviously, the Ukrainian regime wants to be in the good books of Trump and Netanyahu, his chief allies. And the Europeans are also, like the British, they are cooperating with the United States against the Iranian people. But what they don't seem to comprehend is that the Iranians have lots of capabilities, and we've seen those capabilities over the past few months. And the superpower has been defeated in the 40-day war. It was defeated in sea warfare during the last 2 weeks. Trump has failed again. So people like Zelensky or the new British Prime Minister, among others, they should be very wary, because they have interests and in this region that Iran can target, and also Iran can reach Kiev, and it's there will be an Iranian retaliation. When the Iranians say they're going to do something, I think by now everyone recognizes that that deed will be done.
Yeah, that was made very clear by Iran, that this Ukrainian act of aggression will not go unanswered. Do you think Kiev assumed that they wouldn't, that they had their hands full in the region, that we will not see any response?
I don't know, but Kiev is not a very rational actor. And the Zelensky regime is desperate, and he is desperately trying to get more support from the United States. Trump, of course, is tilting increasingly towards Kiev, and although I believe that he is going to fail both against Iran and Russia, but I think Zelensky is basically doing this to get more support. But at the end of the day, I think it's becoming quite clear that the United States, NATO, the Europeans, they will fail both in Tehran, against Tehran, and in Moscow, and now against in Yemen as well. This sort of behavior ultimately is going to hurt Ukraine more than it hurts anyone else, because Iran has many options. This region that we are in has assets that are linked to Ukraine. And as I said, Iran's reach does include the territory of Ukraine, and obviously Iran has a legitimate right to respond. But what this is, in general, what the United States and the Ukrainians have done, and the Europeans, what they've done is that they brought Iran and Russia closer to each other. And they brought the entire global majority closer to each other. And they're isolating themselves further. And now, as we're seeing in Yemen, the United States doesn't have any good options. So it's very foolish to continue this up the escalation ladder. But for now, that's where things are going.
That's a very interesting point I think you make, sir. Essentially, that analysts and people are wondering, why would Kiev want to involve itself in another conflict, another war? And as you say, as America essentially sidelines it to focus on what is happening in the Middle East, and the Europeans take over in terms of aid and other kind of help, is this a way for Zelensky to say, hold on a minute, we still need our American benefactors?
Yes, and also he wants to tell the American benefactors that you need me. Look, I can strike both Iran and Russia. But I think ultimately Kiev is moving towards failure against Russia, even though the propaganda in the West is massive. But the facts on the ground show that the regime is desperate and things are going downhill, just like it is in the Persian Gulf and in the Strait of Hormuz and in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait as well. Nothing is going well for the Americans, nothing is going well for the Europeans, and this sort of behavior is only going to make the Iranians, the Russians, Yemen, the resistance in Iraq, all of them more determined.
Iran's foreign minister also alleged that Benjamin Netanyahu is the one dragging European countries into the war. But can I put it to you, sir, that relations between Kiev and West Jerusalem have been strained, including over the glorification of World War II Nazi collaborators? So why would Ukraine do Israel's bidding?
Because at the end of the day, the influence that the Israeli regime has in Washington is second to none. And despite the fact that their relations have been somewhat strained at times, but the underlying relationship has always been very strong. And of course, Zelensky presents himself as a Zionist when he traveled to Palestine. So this is a desperate regime that is moving towards defeat, regardless of what Western media is in. And he's desperately trying to get Trump to look at him more favorably and see him as an asset. But I think ultimately what this is going to do is it's going to consolidate the Iranian-Russian relationship further. It's going to consolidate the Yemeni-Iranian relationship further, and so on. It doesn't help Zelensky, it doesn't help Europe, it doesn't help the United States. It is an act that will only justify Iranian response, which will be heavy-handed. And I think by now, as I said earlier, during the past months, I think everyone should know by now that when Iran says it's going to respond in a heavy-handed manner, it is definitely going to.
University of Tehran academic and commentator Professor Saeed Mohammed Randi, thank you for your time.
Yeah, so like everything else, so you know, another phase of the war. And that's no coincidence, because it says the Third World War cometh quickly, right? So even this proxy war becomes a full-blown war. And you can look at the headlines here. Iran blasts freeloader Zelensky for ordering the deadly attack against Caspian vessel. Iran condemns Zelensky for ordering deadly Caspian attack. You know, and you got the highlights: weakened U.S. crude, markets down 5%. Iran will halt tit-for-tat strikes if the U.S. maintains pause. Iran, Oman hold Hormuz talks as pauses airstrikes for a second day. And like everything else, so America has nothing to do with those talks, because as it stands, unless they pay a toll, ain't no traffic getting through, and the traffic is a lot slower than what one realizes. It said that maybe as much as 2 cargo ships are getting through a day. That's not a whole lot of movement. And then you got the other strait also closed now because of Houthis, which is separate, yet at the same time is still an ally of Iran, but Iran's not commanding them, they're acting on their own, has closed the Bab el Strait, you know, against Saudi Arabia. So there's no oil going that way. So, and like everything else, so, you know, Turkey, Israeli state's talking about attacking Turkey as a preemptive because they know what's going to happen later. Agashi says Ukraine's attack against an Iranian ship in the Caspian Sea will not go unanswered. And Agashi is pretty much the foreign minister. He's close to what the president can do. You know, we still know that President Peshkin, I believe is his name. I think his name's Peshkin. I'd have to look that up again, but nonetheless, he's like right next to the president, though, of Iran. Agashi said on Sunday that Ukraine's attack against Iranian commercial ship in the Caspian Sea cannot go unanswered. And so, yeah, pretty much you can expect to see Iran's retaliatory strikes against Ukraine. Now, should the U.S. or anybody else interact, well, you know that that'll resume everything. Zelensky took credit for the strike which killed Iranian crew member. Zelensky claimed the ship was struck was carrying military cargo. We also achieved very strong results with long-range strikes in the Caspian Sea, including vessels. So, you know, long-range weapons against Iran. You think Iran doesn't have it? So expect retaliation. The attack against Iranian ship comes as Ukraine continues to escalate its long-range drone attacks against Russia, which are carried out using intelligence provided by the U.S. and have been targeting Russian oil tankers and refineries and have been killing a significant number of civilians. So, like everything else, though, Russia is kind of an ally of theirs. Now, and their retaliatory strikes, it could hit Kiev pretty heavily. You know, and they're calling him a freeloader. You know, a mooch, if you will. And he is kind of a mooch, you know. He's a mooch that doesn't get off, right? You know, even Trump has referred to Zelensky as a mooch. So it's hilarious here. But let all the men of war draw up, and the fact is that Ukraine now has officially entered into the war. As well as, you know, Saudi Arabia officially entering into the war against Yemen. A lot of players have entered into the war, but it's not World War III yet. Not the final war, but yet at the same time, these skirmishes. We're in the part of wars and rumors of wars, as this brother breaks it down, and I'm going to play that in just a minute here. But, you know, we're in that time, though, that World War III is coming quickly. As you can see, all the players are already there. Once a ground invasion happens, that's World War III. But the Valley of Jehoshaphat, well, officially you got Ukraine involved now. So you can see some long-range attacks. So here we are, all the players set up in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. But this is not World War III yet, but first they have to be gathered there, right? Everybody has to enter the war from one side to the other. The ground invasion hasn't happened yet, but will. And that's where you can see Turkey. So what Israeli state's trying to do is trying to attack Turkey preemptively, knowing that Turkey is going to open their wall, and Russia's going to come down and wipe them out. So they looking to preemptively destroy a lot of Turkey's strongholds, you know, to wipe them out. And that's what Bennett wants to do, who may become the next Israeli president, because King Bibi does look like he's on his way out. And they seem to love to play this election phase just like Babylon. But if you realize that Babylon's been ruled by the Israelis the whole time, before they were called Israelis, has been ruled by Amalek the whole time, then you kind of understand the structure here. And just this solidifying the two mergers. Yeah, Americans believe that in this independent state and freedom and all that other shit would not fire against U.S. citizens, but Amalek would. Because Amalek doesn't consider his brother as equal, sees his brother as the 99%. You know, you've heard the term the 99%ers. They see themselves as the 1% superior to everybody else, and they're going to be hostile to everyone. So, here we go. The Most High is mustering this up because he's about to destroy Edom off the face of the planet, meaning that Edom will no longer be a power structure. Yes, we will enslave them for 1,000 years. However, though, they will not ever exist as a nation after those 1,000 years are up. And that's what we're getting ready for. You know, the elimination. You can call it an elimination chamber like WWE does, right? The Most High is setting up an elimination chamber, leaving Russia as the last part of the Edomites, which is where the chariots will come against Gog and Magog, the chariots being part of Yahushai's army. You know, they will, the beast, which is NATO, because believe it or not, Russia and the rest of the Edomites, you know, the Space Center and all that, Trump called it the Space Force. Well, nonetheless, though, Babylon the Great gets destroyed, and in the midst of that, Babylon the Great being destroyed, because it's city against city, kingdom against kingdom. In the midst of that, Yahushai and the angels, while we're seeing America become this lake of fire, yet at the same time, we're going to see Yahushai and the angels, as we're looking at it, see a glass mingle with fire, we're also going to see Yahushai and the angels destroy Gog and Magog off the face of the planet, meaning that all their army is about to be wiped out. That's why the scriptures tell you, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, meaning that he's going to gather them too after Babylon the Great is destroyed. So Edom is about to be destroyed altogether. The Most High is playing, putting everybody in the playing fields. Joel chapter 3 verse 2, because we see this formation happening. Now Gog and Magog hasn't come down there yet, but when they do, you'll know. You know, so the ground war, once you see ground troops moving in Iran, you're going to see ground troops moving into Turkey through all those places coming down from the north. You know, down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. I will gather all the Gentile nations that were hostile towards my people, and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, for the Most High has judged. And there I will deal with them. And this is the Amp version of Joel chapter 3, verse 2. And I will deal with them and enter into judgment with them there, for the treatment of my people, my inheritance Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and because they have enroached on my land and divided it up, which this is against Esau, Edom as a whole, Amalek, all of them, you know. And he's going to judge every last fucking one of them. They have cast lots for my people and traded a boy for a prostitute and sold a girl for a wine that they may drink. Because you have taken my silver and my gold and carried my precious treasures to your temples and palaces, you know, ultimately, you know, enslaving everyone and stealing all the riches, and have sold children of Yehudah and the children of Jerusalem unto the Greeks, which are the Edomites, so that you may send them far away from their territory, aka Babylon the Great, because that's where the ultimate selling was. Behold, I am going to stir them up from the place where you have sold them, and return them to their land, that is, via the chariots. Thou shalt return your action of retaliation on your own head. You know, pretty much so. We're going to have a slave trade too. And it's going to be good. It's going to be real good. Because we know that they had their slave trade. We're going to have a slave trade too. That will sell your sons and daughters into the hands of the children of Yehudah. And they will sell them to the Sabians, to a distant nation. For the Most High Yahweh has spoken. So, we're going to have a slave trade also. It's going to be good. The thing is, though, is that the children of Yehudah, of Yehudah and Jerusalem are going to be the main ones in charge. Those other nations are going to be under slavery too. So guess what? They're pretty much going to be sold to us. And we're going to be brokering all those places, by the way. We're going to own all the land. And we're not just going to own Israel. We're going to own all of it. Israel is going to rule the entire world with Yahweh Shai. See, we're going to be joint heirs with Yahweh Shai. So certain of us will actually probably, well, we not just probably, but we will be kings and princes of those lands. See, we're going to have lands. We're going to be in control of those lands. Israel's not just going to be that small little place that you look at on the map. Israel is going to be worldwide. Now, the city of Jerusalem is still going to be in the land of Israel, but see, the whole world's going to be Israel very soon, and we're going to be in charge. The Israelites will rule the world, and we're going to be kings and princes of the lands. Pretty much, we're going to be kings of the land. We will be kings very shortly here, and we're going to open up our slave trade. I don't know why I went there with that, but hey, you know, Spirit's upon me to say it. This is what's coming in the kingdom. You know, I know that's a distance, but it's not that distant now when you think about it. The Most High has spoken. Proclaim this among the pagan nations. Prepare a war, stir up the mighty men. Let all the men of war come near and let them come up. You know, so that's what's happening now, is they're all gathering there. Now this is ultimately talking about the ground invasion. You know, the ground war, because, you know, when you're just playing with Air Force and all that, you're just doing tit-for-tat strikes. That's what they've been calling it, right? But when you start talking about ground invasions, full-blown invasions, now you know the war has started, as this next video gets into, right? Beat your plowshares into swords and your prune hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong. Hurry and come, all you surrounding nations, and gather yourselves there. Bring down, O Lord, your mighty ones. Let the nations be stirred to action and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge all the surrounding nations. Put in the sickle of judgment, for the harvest is ripe. Come tread the grapes, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow, for the wickedness of the people is great. You know what? I'm just going to separate this video from this one, because I just may as well play in its entirety. So I'm just going to forward it on my channel, making part 2 to this. Put in the sickle of judgment, for the harvest is ripe. Come tread the grapes, for the winepress is full. You know what a winepress looks like when it's full, right? So therefore, you know, there's so many fucking things that need to be tread down. You know, kind of like when you're recycling, you need to stomp down your your cans and your bottles. You need to stomp them. That's what's going to happen here. That's what you do with grapes and a grapevine. The vats overflow, for the wickedness of the people is great. When we stomp it down, you know, just pretty much destroying everything. Multitudes of the valley of decision, which is judgment. The day of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai, is near in the valley of decision. This is when the transfer of kingdoms is about to happen, when judgment is executed. Ultimately, by way of that nuclear destruction, it begins there. Now, I'm going to pretty much, I'm just going to call it part 2 because this brother's already put it out, but I'm going to put this on my channel. Babylon and Persia are ready for ground invasion, but hold on, the mark of the beast. So, this is going to be part 2. I'm going to put that in its entirety. As you can see, I got it from the YouTube channel. GMS Customs, Hamath. But I'm just going to put that on my channel anyways. So, like everything else, so, you know, just forwarding, man. Paying it forward because this video is already good. As you can see, I've already watched 37 minutes of it. I only had 18 more to go, so I may as well just do it in its entirety. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that, I want to say, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Wa Abal Babal. And I encourage you to go ahead and play this video either on my channel or on the GMS Customs Hamath channel. Shalom, Barak the Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Wa Abal Babal. Brakatum, Jehovah elect. Shalom.